Welcome everyone to Dr. John Bedker's Leadership Podcast, the podcast focused on leadership. The episode will begin shortly. Thank you so much for tuning in. Enjoy the podcast.
Welcome everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Dr. John Bedker Leadership Podcast. I'm your host, John Bedker. Well, as always, I really am grateful for everyone that tunes in. I'm going to start today with a bit of a sidebar, and then we'll get right to our topic of this episode. But the sidebar is this. Just a couple of hours ago, I was informed that the U.S. Fulbright Board of Directors has resigned. And they did this because of concern about the Trump administration and their politicization of the Fulbright. Now, some of you may know, I am a U.S. Fulbright scholar. I had the great honor, privilege, to serve as the U.S. Fulbright scholar to Belarus, 2018-2019, which is to say I was there during the prequel to war. President Trump had fired the ambassador at that time. 30% of my Fulbright was to provide leadership to U.S. Embassy, Minsk, along with being the Fulbright professor at Belarus State Economic University and providing free and constant consultative support and advisory to services to Belarusians seeking to do business in the West. So it was an incredible time, a heady time to be there. I saw firsthand how important Fulbright is. And now to see what this current administration, the administration of Donald Trump, is doing to education writ large, but certainly, as I'm just hearing about now, to the Fulbright globally. I'll certainly commit to talking about this more in a future episode, but I wanted to mention it to you now, that really one of the very, very important and vital projections of soft power, but to share our training, our knowledge, and our experience to those in other countries, to build relationships, again, has been destroyed. Okay, well, that was the sidebar, but it also is a great introduction, frankly, to what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about what I consider a great leader today, because I think we need it. We need to hear the voices of great leaders, and today I'm going to do that. I had thought for some time about this. You know, it's graduation season here this last month or so. And with that comes speeches from all kinds of people, ranges of people. And this year, the Seniors' Day at Harvard, the speaker was Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. He was born Lew Alcindor, played basketball. Most of you know he is one of the greatest basketball players of all time. Played in New York City at a Catholic high school called Power Memorial. Their team won 71 consecutive times. Played his college basketball at UCLA, winning 3 consecutive national championships. His coach was John Wooden, so there's really incredible history there. So this is a person whose accomplishments are so many, I could just do the entire podcast reading his awards and accolades. Certainly not enough time to do that. Let me read just a few to kind of set the stage for those of you that may not be familiar. He was the 6-time NBA, National Basketball Association champion. Yeah. Won the NBA championship 6 different times, twice he was in the finals, most valuable player. 6 times, he was the NBA's most valuable player. 19 times, he was an NBA All-Star. 10 times an All-NBA first team. This list, folks, goes on and on and on about how incredible Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was on the court, the excellence that he brought to his chosen work, his chosen life, basketball. But after basketball, he continued his excellence, and he did it in so many other different and varied ways. It really brings out the leadership that is Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. And so, as I said, he spoke this year during commencement week at Harvard to the class of 2025. He was the class day speaker. He spoke on May 28th, so just a few weeks ago. Several things have been written about it. It was quite a speech. I'm going to read some quotes. One, an article from the Harvard Crimson by Nina Pasquini, and another from the Harvard Gazette by the writer Alvin Powell. So I want to give each of those folks their full and due credit, because I'm going to read a fair amount of what they said and then add my comments to them as well. All right, let's begin. Here's Kareem beginning his talk, saying, "There are more similarities than one might think between graduating from Harvard and retiring from the NBA. The legendary basketball player, writer, and activist Kareem Abdul-Jabbar told graduating seniors at their class day ceremony on Wednesday afternoon. When he retired," this is Kareem quoting now, "there were cheering crowds, a deep sense of accomplishment, and funny clothes. Though I admit that academic robes are much classier than the Laker tank tops and shorts," said the 19-time NBA All-Star and 6-time NBA champion. Beyond this sense of celebration, Abdul-Jabbar said he also had and I'm quoting now, nervous trepidation about the future, a feeling he expected many graduates were experiencing as they sat in Tercentenary Hall beneath leafy trees in the afternoon spring sun. "Where did I go from here? Where do I go from here?" said Kareem. "Who do I want to be? There's so much pressure after a major accomplishment for us to go on and to do even more, greater things." So think about this, folks. This is how he is beginning his speech, these quotes I'm giving you. And what he's saying is a call to action, to say this day is one of great excitement, great accomplishment, achievement, excellence. But it is the beginning of a journey, the beginning of the road, and not a destination. Okay, for Abdul-Jabbar, it took some time to figure out. He said there weren't many options when you're 7'2", he explained. Eventually, though, he found his calling in writing about politics, sports, African American history, authoring over 20 books, contributing to major media outlets, and now he publishes regularly on Substack. In many ways, this change from basketball to these other lives, plural, was a pivot. What does skyhooking a ball through a hoop have to do with eloquent sentences, nuanced metaphors, or keen social thought? This is a quote from Kareem. But he determined that both his basketball and his writing careers were motivated by the same value, a commitment to justice and the fight against racism. Now, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar certainly is a black man, and he was confronted with that throughout his NBA career. But afterwards, he says, I had a commitment to justice and the fight against racism. He chose these things because, as we know, leaders want to do the right thing. That's the essence of leadership. And he said for him that this was this commitment to justice and this fight against racism. For him, those were the right things. And of course, they are right things. That commitments sometimes required personal sacrifice. He told the story at Harvard that in 1968, Abdul-Jabbar shared that he turned down an offer to play in the United States Olympics basketball team, a decision that cost him a childhood dream and dealt a blow to his reputation. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. had been assassinated that April, and civil rights for black people were starting to feel like a fading dream, he said. I couldn't bring myself to become a smiling symbol of the promise of the United States multiracial democracy when it was doing everything it could not to fulfill that promise. He drew inspiration then and now from King. Abdul-Jabbar quoted King's words, quote, "Human progress is neither automatic nor inevitable. Every step toward the goal of justice requires sacrifice, suffering, and struggle." That truth to him is encapsulated in the story of Rosa Parks, he said. Not just the successful desegregation of the Montgomery bus system after the bus boycott, but what came after. The years of continued struggle, including the 1956 bombing of King's home by segregationists. Again, quoting Kareem, "What affected me most about Dr. King's response to that bombing was his comment. Remember that if anything happens to me, there will be others to take my place," Abdul-Jabbar said. He was so confident that others would step in and continue the fight against injustice. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar told students that in Harvard he sees evidence that King's confidence was justified. "One of the reasons I'm so pleased to be here today," he said, "is because I view Harvard University as being among the others willing to take Dr. King's place." After waiting for the audience applause to die down, he continued, quote, "After seeing so many cowering billionaires, media moguls, law firms, politicians, other universities bend their knee to an administration that is systematically strip mining the U.S. Constitution, it is inspiring to me to see Harvard University take a stand for freedom." Looking out at the soon-to-be graduates, Abdul-Jabbar encouraged them to become those, quote, "others," end quote, the ones who step up in times of injustice, grounded by their core values, when, as their paths led to unexpected places. Didn't matter where they were headed, didn't matter what they were doing, where they were going, but always be prepared to stand up for justice, grounded by your core values. I think this is a great leadership message for us all. So I mentioned the both articles. I'll go on just for a couple more quotes from the Harvard Gazette. This is the article by Alvin Powell, where he talked about in early 1956, the Reverend Martin Luther King stood next to his bombed-out house in Montgomery, Alabama, and urged angry supporters to recommit to nonviolence, reassuring them that, quote, "If anything happens to me, there will be others that take my place." Remember that when I spoke about that just a moment ago. If anything happens to me, there will be others to take my place. The good people, the people seeking to do the right thing. I'm hoping each and every one of you listening to this podcast can be part of the others that stand up to do the right thing. Back to the article and a quote. When a tyrannical administration tried to bully and threaten Harvard to give up their academic freedom and destroy free speech, Dr. Alan Garber, he's the president, Dr. Alan Garber rejected the illegal and immoral pressures the way Rosa Parks defied the entire weight of systemic racism in 1955, said Abdul-Jabbar. As I look out over the crowd of eager faces today who are ready to launch their lives of successful careers, I wonder how many of you will also be among those willing to take Dr. King's place. Now, folks, this is an important thing for each of us in leadership to understand. This is literally the call to action. And Kareem Abdul-Jabbar makes that by saying, I wonder how many of you will also be among the others willing to take Dr. King's place. There's the question. There's the chance. Reflecting on his own journey as an undergrad, which took him first to the State University of New York at Binghamton and then to Cornell, this now Dean Karani recalled his time as a turning point. Just what Kareem was talking about, this call to action. What would he do? He said, wherever you go next, the important question isn't where you go now, but who you are going to be. May your road be a long one, full of adventure, full of discovery, but to understand who you are, your values, your core values, those leadership core competencies that are inside each and every one of us, to allow those to grow, to come out, to be shared with others. This, folks, is a really important message for each and every one of us today. Abdul-Jabbar goes on to say, you have to decide whether you're part of the old-timey fire brigades passing buckets of water down a long line of people trying to put out a fire, or if you're content to stand by and let it burn. Now, this was one of the closing remarks that Kareem Abdul-Jabbar gave in his speech at Harvard, just a 20-minute speech. But oh my God, as I listened and I'm writing as quickly as I can to capture these ideas, I'm saying to myself, this is an absolutely exemplary talk on leadership. Because we have to understand that a rising tide raises all boats, right? That's not a debate. It's not a question. It does. But the same is true for leadership. Try this quote one more time from Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. You have to decide whether you're part of the old-timey fire brigades passing buckets of water down a long line of people trying to put out a fire, or if you're content to stand by and let it burn. And one victory is not enough. Kareem said, urging grads to commit themselves to a lifelong fight. Yeah, we need to win battles. We need to win a lot of battles. But it is a lifelong fight. It's a never-ending battle that must be fought over and over, Abdul-Jabbar said. After seeing so many cowering billionaires, and this is a quote from the other article as well, I'm going to read it though quickly, media moguls, law firms, politicians, and other universities bend their knees to an administration that is systemically strip mining the U.S. Constitution. It is inspiring to me to see Harvard University take a stand for freedom. So, a short speech, the two articles from the Crimson and the Gazette, quoting him and my efforts to try to do the same. The message is really about leadership. How do we do the right thing? Why do we do the right thing? The call to action. The understanding that it is not a battle, that it is a lifelong commitment, a lifelong journey to do the right thing over and over and over. You know, a lot of times my corporate work, they need quick things. They need easy things. And sometimes I think it's too easy. But here's one I'll give in closing that I've often used. And the acronym is FIT. F-I-T. Just like it sounds. FIT. Well, what does that mean for us in leadership? F. Frequently. Frequently is the F. We need to practice these core values. We need to share these core values. We need to develop ourselves and others frequently. How do we do it? We need to do it with intensity. And I don't mean loud. I don't mean hollering. I mean with the honest belief, the authenticity, the genuineness, the absolute core value that I believe in you. I believe in helping you. I believe in rising your boat with everyone else. That intensity of caring and commitment, and doing this in a way of empathy, of actually caring for the other. That intensity is the I. And the T, as Kareem has talked about, is time. We don't get to do it once or twice or when it's comfortable. We need to do it regularly, continually, and frankly, always over time. Frequency, intensity, time. This is how we manifest the call to leadership that Kareem Abdul-Jabbar made to the students of the graduating class at Harvard this year. Okay, folks, important message to Kareem, to the graduating seniors at Harvard, but a hugely important message for each and every one of us. Okay, take care. We'll talk soon.
Thank you for tuning in to Dr. John Bedker's Leadership Podcast. We hope you enjoyed this episode. Please tell your friends, and, of course, please follow our podcast and subscribe. Thank you again for tuning in.